Pete, I want to go straight to you because you made an impassioned plea on this show and you said Alan Richardson's got 2 years on his contract. I'm sick of this speculation. Why does it continue? Well, it feels as though it has ramped up today. What do you make of it all?
The thing I'd say to Grant Thomas is, and he mentioned the 5 years, the thing I'd say, well, Mark Thompson at Geelong, do you remember him? Do you remember Damien Hardwick? Do you remember Nathan Buckley?
7 years in.
Yeah, you know, there's possibilities and it's not always the coach that it's at fault. But it does feel like the pressure's building. But I reckon a lot of it is being brought on by Nick Riewoldt. Nick Riewoldt's been extremely critical of Alan Richardson since he's retired. And you can understand that from a player that has been retired by that coach that perhaps didn't want to go. And he was told he had to go perhaps a year or two earlier than he wanted to go. So he has a little bit of an axe to grind. But having said that, Nick Riewoldt knows the place better than just about anyone else.
You see, let's have a quick look at some of these comments, Duck, if we can, from Nick Riewoldt. This is over the course of the last few months. You can see there in the middle he was questioning about whether they review things brutally enough. I've got a different view on what brutal looks like compared to the current group. That was something that frustrated him. And then right at the end, the results so far this year would suggest he, being Alan Richardson, is under pressure, and I think he understands that, and the football club are aware of it. He goes on to call it a dire situation at St Kilda at the moment. So it is interesting on BT and Tom's point that if Nick Riewoldt is in fact making a play for the board, or if there are people at the board trying to get Nick onto the board, it would spell trouble for Alan Richardson.
If Nick Riewoldt goes on the board, Alan Richardson is done.
He's cooked. He gets sacked.
You only got to look at those comments.
That middle comment where he says review of Paul Loss, that's basically saying that he thinks that Richo's not strong enough with the group.
That they're too soft on the group after a loss.
After a loss.
So but don't want to back over again. You honestly think if Nick Riewoldt accepted a position on the board, you think that he would make it his business to get rid of Alan Richardson?
I think Alan Richardson would be done and gone. I think that's evidently clear. I go back to what Simon Lefley, the current football manager, has said, and that is he's reviewed the footy department. They need some extra senior coaches, which they're now collating and already signed a couple of those. Alan Richardson will be here for one more year, and that year will determine whether he stays on. That's what I go back to. But a new board could change.
So you're saying one new board member could change the whole face of Alan Richardson's
future? One new board
future?
member that doesn't agree with the way in which Alan Richardson goes. Yes, and the power, you've got to understand
one of the greatest players
of Nick Riewoldt
of all time.
Absolutely.
He walks onto that board at St Kilda. Who on that board is going to say to him he's wrong on football issues? No one.
I just think back to your point a few seconds ago, PT. Now that all the comments that Simon Lefley and the club have made, and they've made change based on the fact that they think Richardson will be there next year, I think to turn away from that and sack him now, I think would be a mistake for how it looks. I think they're duty-bound to give him another year.
If that did happen, and I think it's a likely scenario, then Simon Lefley, who I reckon has done a fantastic job down there, would also be under threat, because that would be the board saying to him, we don't think your review was right. We don't think it was correct.
Interesting times at St Kilda.